Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Wednesday, wherever you are coming and hopping on from. I know for some of you, it may be morning, night, afternoon, evening, depending on if you're in the United States, West Coast, East Coast, North, South. Everybody is welcome. I didn't take my wrist slide off today. I've got a mild case of carpal tunnel syndrome, so I'm trying to heat what my doctor said, at least on one side of my body, because as you can see, I don't have the other one on, but don't tell my doctor. Okay, that'll just be between you and I. So, so again, welcome, welcome, welcome. If this is your first time here, I am Dr. Twanna Carter. And as a career coach, I help stressed, busy women execs that are tackling imposter syndrome, self criticism, and doubt. I help them to alleviate stress so that they can find peace of mind and focus on, excelling in their career. And I think peace of mind is a huge thing right now. I know there was a thing is a couple of years ago, like if you got peace of mind, don't be giving it away. But really, once you hit your 40s and 50s, ladies, and let me know if this is true for you. By the time you hit your 40s and 50s, you want to excel in your career, but without all the drama. Just not all the drama, not all the intensity and all of it. You want to do what you want to do. You know what you want to do, right? But not with all the drama. So if you can hear me, go ahead and drop a one in the chat for me to be sure that I can hear you, that you can hear me this week. And if I don't get a response, I will check my mic because I know I was on one time a couple weeks ago for about 7 minutes and I was muted. But I think we are good today. So I want to rearrange my thing here so I can see when you guys are talking to me and go ahead and leave me comments and whatnot. I love your questions, love your participation and whatnot. It is wanted and definitely needed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so, yeah, today we're actually talking about work life, if you want to call it work life balance, work life flow, whatever term that you want to call it. That's what we're talking about today, right? And it's all about the strategies. How do we get, to the point where we're balancing and getting what we need and giving others what they need without sacrificing ourselves in the middle? Because that's actually what tends to happen, right? And so I want to just check a couple of places here to be sure that I can be heard. I just want to make sure that I don't do a whole nother session where I'm all the way in and you can't hear me. So again, today we are talking about unlocking the door to work life flow for Black women, because again, a lot of us, the flow is we flow for everybody else. We do everything else. We're on all of the, in all of the organizations, and we're chairing and we're presidents and we're VPs, in our volunteer work, and we're exec women in our jobs, and we're handling things, and we have families, and we're mates, and we have kids, and we have all this going on around us. And sometimes that balance is not there. It's just they flow. I'm literally flowing and popping from one thing to the other, to the other, to the other, which can leave you feeling strung out and feeling burned out as well, right? So I do have a couple of videos out there about being burned out, but really today I want to talk to you about work-life flow. Okay. And so really at the end of the day, work-life balance, work-life flow is a challenge for professionals across all of the industries, all genders, all races, all of us, many of us, we grapple with that work life, like how much work do we need to give versus how much life, how do we balance the two, right? And for African American females, the struggle is really to balance personal life as well as professional commitments. It's just sometimes further compounded by some unique circumstances and expectations and pressures from families and communities, right? And I did some research, and I've been talking about this for a couple of months now, and the fact that Black women and Latina women, we tend to have way more responsibilities and caretaking for our families. And our families aren't just, you know, our immediate families. That's an extended family. It could be uncles and grandmothers and cousins, right? And nephews and grandchildren. And we tend to have a bit more expectations when our communities what our communities expect from us, right? And as well, okay, I'm missing my comments over here. Let me find my comments. I want to be sure that I see. There we go. Now I can see my comments over there if you guys make comments, right? And so oftentimes, African American women, we still are underrepresented, in leadership roles. Latina women still underrepresented in corporate America, right? White women, Indian women, we're all underrepresented in those leadership roles in that C-suite, right? And often, for African American women, those who actually make it to the C-suite, there's extra scrutiny and pressure that to perform, like, it's like I can't let my race down, I can't let my community down, I don't want to let my family down, and people that trusted me with this position, I don't want to let anybody down. And so it kind of comes with the weight of a double bind, right? It's the pressure to be competent and look competent and feel confident and act confidently, right, and competently, and you want to be liked in the workplace as well. Many of us do. Okay. And you're doing this in a workplace that's not always out or not always valuing your contribution. So yes, I want to be confident. Yes, I want to give you my all, but you're doing it in a workplace that may or may not value your contributions. Right. And then there's also sometimes this need to be perfect in both your professional life and your personal life. And that's when that imposter syndrome will kick in. Like, I got to do it all right. I got to be on the job and do that right because I'm trusted to be in this position. There are people, responsible, that I'm responsible for. They're depending on me. And then it's like ditto for your personal life. And, trying to be perfect in the personal life and in the professional life, it can really take a toll. It becomes exhausting. And it can take a toll on you mentally and physically. So your physical health as well as your mental health. And I dare say your spiritual health can also suffer. Right. And so at the same time, you've got this personal, professional, back and forth, you fill in that double bind. There are unique pressures outside, there are unique, expectations outside the pressures of work, right? And so again, I've already mentioned family obligations. Okay. Some of us, when we get to a certain place and we're the most successful person in the family, or the one, two, three that have made it the furthest and you're successful, there's an expectation that you're taking care of family. Again, not just your immediate family, but family. People may call you up for jobs, and they'll call you up for money, or they call you up for business opportunities because it's like, you've made it. You have a responsibility to give back to your family and your community. Okay. And there's also church obligations for those of us that attend church, or, for those of you who are Muslim, there are still obligations, right? That for the mosque that you may be responsible for, or that support role, right? And so, and it's not like we can just like, oh, I'm not going to do the spiritual stuff. I'm not going to do that. It's an integral part of your life. And that adds that pressure to perform, and also it just this a deep sense of responsibility to support it, uplift your family and communities, which what ends up happening is we'll do that even when it's about, we end up sacrificing our own personal time and our own well-being. A lot of us are socializing to that, and depending on where you are, and depending on what your roots are, oftentimes many of my clients are both they're both African descent, they're Black, and they have Latina heritage. So that responsibility to family and community, we don't tend to take it lightly. Some people can, some people don't. So they kind of weighs because we don't want to get it wrong, right? And so the intersection of, that community and that family, that the expectations, they create this gap, right? They create a gap, and for us, again, we can't just lightly say, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just not going to do that. We don't do that. We take it seriously. This has been ingrained through our culture and through our families, right? And so what you see is people will often look on Black women kind of like with awe, like they're juggling all these different responsibilities, right? And they have all these multiple roles, and they're like kicking butt, and they're doing it with grace, and we're doing it with poise, right? You don't see them under, we don't see them complaining very often, and like can't and do is not in their vocabulary. If you give them a project, it's done, right? You give them something to do, it's done. It doesn't matter what it is, it's done. On the other hand, Black women are like, whoo, I'm tired. I mean, everything is piling on me at one time. And sometimes it's a sense of bewilderment, like, how do I get all of this done? And when you look up, there's more coming in. And it's almost like impossible to get it all done because you have all these demands placed on you. But some of us are afraid to fail. We're afraid to say no because we've been groomed to be responsible. The responsible, you're financially responsible. You have the job responsibilities. And is it any wonder why our personal well-being will take the back seat or even not even be in the car at all with us when we're talking about work-life balance, work-life flow? Our personal lives is not even there. Sometimes it's not even on the map. Okay. And then let's also talk about the intersection of race and gender. I mentioned a few moments before, for Black and Latina women and for white women as well, a lot of the home duties fall to us, right? And not everybody can afford to hire a nanny or hire a housekeeper to come in, because sometimes that extra money is being given to other family members who need her and help. And so that creates more pressure on you as an African American woman, right? And that's the home life. But what about in the workplace? Yeah, there's discrimination bias in that workplace. And so sometimes not sometimes, many times it's harder for African American women to advance into these advanced leadership positions, right? And when you get there, sometimes you're only one of few, which then creates this like sense of isolation and pressure to prove yourself. I got to get it right. So many people are depending on me, which then further exacerbates the challenges of work life balance. Because the thing that typically gets let go of is the personal life. That's what let go. And when I say personal, I mean self. Self care generally flows out of the window because I have kids. I may have grandparents. I may have parents. I have the job. I have organizations. I have all these things. So the one thing on my list that I can push to the back of the room and not worry about it right now is self care. Right. But it gets old. And if you don't do the self care piece of this, it leads to burnout. Right. And I talk to a lot of my clients and a lot of women who just feel I am exhausted. My mind is exhausted from going from thing to task, project to project, big thing, little thing, over one after the other, after the other, and after the other. But also feeling like there's nothing I can let down. I can't let people down. That is exhausting. So that's what I'm talking about today when we talk about that work life flow or that work life balance. Is it a challenge? Absolutely. It is a challenge for a lot of professionals right now. Right. And that's why you do have so many women that are opting to do what I did. I decided to step out and then create my own. Well, I had one company. I have two. And I decided to run them full time because it's hard sometimes to get the work life balance when you're working for other folks. And I'm not going to say that it's all a cakewalk when you're an entrepreneur, but you can sometimes be more intentional, right? And so let's talk about what do you need to do? Because I've hit the pain points and I've told you about how challenging it is and what you're likely facing depending on who you are and who your family is, right? And so the answer really is not a simple answer. And there are some key strategies, right? And the first one is to recognize that you're not alone. You know, you're not alone in this. A lot of women, again, I can't tell you how many women I see that feel this way. So you're not alone, right? The second strategy is to understand that you need to start being intentional about setting boundaries. And by doing so, prioritizing your own well being. Because, let me ask you this, if you don't prioritize your own well being, who else will do it for you? Probably no one, right? Probably no one, right? And then also, as African American women, we need to be willing to challenge, right, cultural expectations and norms that might be holding us back. Now, like I said before, we're raised with these norms. Some of us are socialized, especially if you're the oldest daughter or you're the responsible daughter. You have all this responsibility and dependency that comes along with that. So I'm not saying chuck it all out of the door, but I am saying that it's a time to take time to challenge what you want to challenge, right? It's kind of time out to say, well, I do it this way because this is the way my family has always done it. It can't change. Well, why can't it change? If you decide to create a new legacy, a new set of rules that not do away with everything but creates or enhances, can you do that? And will that actually let some steam off? Okay. And so I've got 5 tips for you to do that. So, number one, again, let me go back and say prioritize and set boundaries. And you do this by identifying those key goals for your life, right? Identify your work goals and identify your home goals. What are the key things that you need to get done? And this is why I often start with values work, because with my clients, because it is what is really important to you, not just what's nice to have, what's good to have, where someone else told you what's important and valuable for you, but for you, what is valuable. You need to understand that so you can set those clear boundaries so that you allocate time for your professional responsibilities and your personal responsibilities, and you are part of the personal responsibilities, right? Basically, it's learning in the workplace, learning to say no to every single project that comes by, but also being sure you're training your staff and you are delegating. I get a lot of women in to say, I know, but they don't do it like I can do it. They can't do it as well as I can. If you train them, they can, right? Eventually they can, because it's how you got to where you are. Someone trained you. You didn't just walk in the door knowing everything that you know. We'd like to think that we are, but we don't. Someone trained you. And so part of your responsibility is to delegate and train someone else. Okay. Number two, schedule personal time. Put it on the calendar, put it on your work calendar, put it on your personal calendar. Let your family know, personal time, this is when I do it. Now, I'll be honest with you. Typically when I start working with women on this, because it's tough, they're in a habit. Their workflow, their work life balance is not there. Work life flow is not there. And so I find that when I tell women, hey, go take 4 to 8 hours and, take some personal time and do whatever, they, their mind goes in overdrive. I can't believe you're spending this much time away from your family. How could you do this? You know what you could be accomplishing. So I typically don't coach my women to start there. I typically coach them to start with 30 minutes to an hour time. And if an hour gets your brain like, oh my gosh, I have all these things, then start with 30. That's your personal time. That's not a time for you to just get a whole laundry list of things done. No, I like to tell my ladies to create space where you don't have anything planned. There's nothing you must do, you should do, or you have to do. Just create that time, about 30 minutes to an hour, no more than that up front. Once you get used to it, and you'll find that your brain will guilt trip you, but if you hang in there, that will stop. Okay. Continue scheduling. And just as important, you got to schedule your personal time, which, you're probably already doing. Time for family, time for kids and relatives and all of those things, right? Those all be intentional, just as intentional as you are about scheduling those things. You got to be just as intentional about scheduling personal time for you. Number three, embrace flexibility. You have to, because the moment that you set your personal time up and it's all a go, you get that call from school and someone is sick. or you get a call from daycare, or you get a call from a daughter, you get a call from a son. Mommy, I need help because XYZ. It happens. So you do have to, I do suggest that you embrace flexibility, right? Because the best, what is it from of mice and men, the best laid plans of mice and men, your plans can just come to like little fruition in a day if something happens. Okay, but do consider embracing flexibilities as that pertains to you. If you have a chance for remote work, great. Hybrid work, great. Have flexible hours, do job sharing, anything that could get you time back in your day so they can enhance your work life balance, right? And so I love what Oprah said. And at the end of the day, I'm not sitting here advocating that we're going to have a perfect balance through life, because we're just not. Oprah said, I love the way she said this, you can actually have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time. And that's what that flexibility is. Some days you'll have more time to yourself, some days less. But in there, you need to be somewhere in that week getting your personal time in. Number 4 is important to help you with this. Build a supportive network. Have an accountability partner. Have someone that says, did you do your personal time today? Did you schedule it for Thursday? Did you really do it on Thursday? What did you do? Did you follow through? Or did you get hooked up and trying to make a to-do list and get all these things done versus taking your time out? Get an accountability partner. In fact, if you need to form a group of you, 3, 4, 5 ladies to do that, great. If you don't quite have that, get a coach, because that's what I do. I have my ladies come see me. They have a client platform. They come back. It's like, what did you do to take care of yourself? What are you doing? So I'm holding them responsible. So whoever's in your network can help hold you accountable, or get a coach to hold you accountable, right? Because again, what you find when you build that network is you'll find that you're not alone. You're not the only one. There are a lot of us struggling with that. And being in a group and feeling like, okay, we're here to support each other, it takes away that isolation. When we feel isolated and that we're the only one doing something, it makes anxiety worse. If you have depression, it ticks up your depression. It could just feel like everything is more intense and worse versus having that supportive network. And do include in there, you know, training your kids. If you still have, I know it, your age, if you're 40s and 50s, you may still have kids. You may have grandkids you're taking care of, or nieces and nephews. Be sure that you're doing your due diligence to train them to do some things. And if you have hubby, if you have wifey, train them to do some of the things that you do. Well, nobody's going to do it like me. That may be true, but it doesn't mean they can't do it. But they're never going to have a reason to do it if you got it all on your plate and you're doing it all, right? And I can say this is tough for me. I can say this, but I essentially started to having to break off a little bit to my oldest daughter. And then when the next one came up, I took some from her, and then I went all down the line until, they all know how to wash their own clothes. They know how to wash dishes, and, they all know how to do those types of things. But at one point, they were all pat on my shoulders like, oh no, they're not going to wash dishes like I do. And I was stressed out. So do train, introduce it. And for those of you that can afford it, I will often say this too to my clients, just hire some help. Even if they don't come in every day, there are people out there that are more than willing to help you out. If they need to come in and cook a meal or two a week, come in and do your heavy cleaning for you, so you're doing light cleaning, or they do light cleaning, you do the heavy, whatever you need, there are people out there that can do that for you. Okay. And so no harm, no foul. And number 5 is real important. Practice self-compassion. And because here's what I do when I say, hey ladies, I tell my client, you know what, you're in a position that you can actually have someone come in and help. Oh my gosh, but I just feel like a failure. Someone comes in to help me. No, you're not a failure. You're providing a job for someone else. And then when you provide that job to them, you're freeing up more time for you and for your family, or if you want to give it to the job, but only if you're compensated for that, right? And so practice self compassion. This pulls you out of the guilt trip that we like to give ourselves. And well, I feel ashamed. I have to have someone to come in and help me do X, Y, Z. Well, don't feel ashamed. Feel empowered, because not everybody has that option. I work with clients who don't have that option. I work with clients who do. So if you have that option to hire help to come in, practice self compassion and hire the help to help you out. You will be amazed at what people can do and what they can take off your plate. And things that are not that important, you can give to someone else to do, right? And understand that achieving a perfect work life flow is just not possible. Some days you're going to do this, but you don't ever want to go through life where everybody else is here and you're always here. That's not a balance. A balance is this, and it's back and forth, right? That's the balance. And it just depends on where you are in your life that you're going. So when we talk about that flow, that work life flow, or that balance, you're flowing and balancing back and forth, and not everybody else is here and you're always down here, right? And also when that little voice in the back of your head, that negative voice that starts kicking in and talking to you, recognize that you're an accomplished woman. You have accomplished a lot. Yes, there are setbacks, but guess what? There are setbacks whether you're a cajillionaire, a kabillionaire, a millionaire, or a thousandaire. There are setbacks. We all have them. Give yourself permission to recharge. If you have a setback, recharge. And often what I find is the reason why I really push with my ladies that I coach, creating that space just to be and just think whatever comes, is because your brain gets some rest and it starts problem solving for you. Solutions come up. And I do it myself, and I'm always amazed, like, I've been working on this for 2 months and the solution is this easy. Taking that time to just be, you recharge and you free up that space where you're a better problem solver, right? And so do take that space, right? Regularly practicing self-care and stress management techniques such as meditation, moving your body. If you want to call it exercise, call it exercise. If you want to call it bowling, golfing, walking, tennis, swimming, gardening, right? All of those things, you're moving your body. Journaling, all those things can help you maintain your mental and your emotional well-being so that you're able to flow back and forth. Because there'll be some days, yes, it is a job. And there'll be some days that someone gets sick. It's all about family. The job takes a back seat. But at somewhere in there, you need to come up and take a seat as well. Okay. And so, in conclusion, today, I want to say that I talked about really, strategic ways that you can accomplish a work life flow so that you're on your list and you're not always go, go, go for everyone else and you're feeling burned out and overwhelmed. The struggle to balance personal and professional commitments, as well as it's a universal challenge. But for African American women, it can be particularly complex sometimes, right? But recognizing what your unique cultural expectations are and what pressures you're putting on yourself, what pressures your job is putting on you, what pressures your community is putting on you, and being able to be intentional about setting boundaries within all those parameters and prioritizing your own well-being, you can actually find a sense of balance, because it's like this, it's always in motion, right? And fulfillment in both your personal life and professional life. So if you hung in there with me to the end, give yourself a hand clap. I appreciate it, because this is just so important to me to do this. April was Stress Awareness Month. May is Mental Health Month. So this is like a great segue from April right into May. Now, if you've heard this and this is really resonating with you, and you've tried the work-life balance thing, but your life is always this, everybody else is here, and you always down here, reach out to me, right? Go ahead and reach out to me, and let's go ahead and set up a call. You can DM me, you can drop balance in the comments, and I will reach out to you, because career coaching is not only reaching the highest pinnacle of your career, and enjoying what you do, but it's also not being stressed out. It's also having that peace of mind and getting that fulfillment from your job and feeling like life is fulfilled because you're not so stressed out all the time. All right. So again, you can drop balance in the comments and I'll reach out to you, or you can DM me. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube, right? You can even find me on Twitter because I'm actually live on Twitter right now, right? But do reach out to me however you reach out to me, right? So for those of you who catch this on the replay, the same thing goes. Thank you for catching that replay. And those of you that were here live, thank you for being live. And I will see you back next week. And we're going to do a month of mental health. And the main, it'll be the mental health in a broader sense. So do come back and see me in May. Same bat time, same bat place. Take care of everybody.